May 15th, 2002.
Good morning, detail! Attention!
They were still looking way ahead toward graduation.
Can one police officer prevent a terrorist attack, yes or no?
This class will always be a special class, mainly because of the way that they took to task on September 11th.
Drive ID and driver's license.
When they were thrown out into the streets.
Not stop here.
I think they're an incredible group of young men and women. They've been through something that I don't think anybody in this police department has ever been through.
And forced to mature overnight.
One day, you're calling the police, and the next day, you are the police.
Tonight, the rookies. New York City Police Department's class of 9/11.
From ABC News, this is Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
I met Dennis Franz the other day. Nice man. Doomed, of course, to be identified for the rest of his life as Andy Sipowicz, the veteran New York City police detective who is the mainstay of the ABC television series NYPD Blue. If the gracious and hugely talented actor Dennis is destined to be confused with the sometimes brutal, always complicated recovering alcoholic Andy, then it is also only fair to point out that Detective Sipowicz has probably cast an unfair shadow on a number of his real-life counterparts. Most New York City detectives are neither racist nor homophobic, nor immediately inclined to trample on a suspect's civil rights. Andy Sipowicz undoubtedly makes a lot of viewers believe otherwise. He, of course, is meant to be portrayed as a bitter, cynical cop, closer to retirement than to the idealism of the police academy, which is where Nightline producer Ted Gerstein takes us tonight. Last year, for the first time in the history of the New York City police force, they couldn't fill the police academy class. Among the 13,000 men and women who applied, there simply weren't enough who qualified. This year, there were 35,000 applicants, the second highest number in history. The reason is simple. It has a lot to do with what happened to the class of 2001, which incidentally has taken to calling itself the 9/11 class. They were just about a third of the way through their training program when events thrust them right into the middle of a crisis unlike any the city has ever known. Among their number, Stephen Rios and Michelle Lambert, each a little uncertain, a little insecure, but desperate to become New York City cops.
My name is Stephen Rios. I started the police academy in July 2nd of 2001. I think when I was around between maybe 5 to 7 years old, I used to go a lot with my father to his restaurant down in Brooklyn. He had a luncheonette on J Street. And a lot of his customers were the 8-4 guys. One officer in particular, we used to go with his family, his wife and his daughter, and we used to go eat at their house. And I was just always around them, and that kind of just, got the idea brewing in my head.
My name is Michelle Lambert. I'm a rookie in the New York City Police Academy. My father's been a police officer for over 30 years, and so I grew up in that environment. When I first decided to be a police officer, I asked my father, what's a good place to be a police officer? He said, the best, by far, police department in the world is the New York City Police Department. Always wanting to be part of the best. Jumped on a bus. I don't think he expected me to do that. I think his words were, for the first time in your life you're listening to me and you're moving to New York City. But I came.
Grant just wants to get his GQ moment in camera.
Good morning, detail! Attention! Round your gear. Move!
Every day begins with a muster, which is basically you line up in company formation and you get inspected by an officer.
Muster is the way in which we duplicate a paramilitary organization. We come out, we do the inspection, we look them up and down, make sure that they're clean shaven, that they have all the required equipment, and that they're present for duty.
Fourth squad, present your watches. Move.
Every little part of your clothing, your shoe shine, everything, make sure everything is looking, because the big thing there is professional presence.
1, sir! 2, sir!
1, sir. 2, sir. 3, sir.
From muster, we head to our first class.
Let's go, guys. Make it happen. Let's go. Let's go.
People with 20 years on come in this building and they hear the words the gym, and they still look and, they kind of shiver.
What happened at 3? Start over.
1, sir. 2, sir.
The Police Academy currently has a police science curriculum, a law curriculum, and a behavioral science curriculum. What happens normally is that they get an hour and a half of classroom instruction per day from each one of the 3 disciplines.
He didn't look right to the police officers, so they watched him. Did those police officers violate this guy's constitutional rights? Curdy.
We take a law class, it's pretty challenging here.
Law is extremely important because you have to know the law inside and out when you're going out there doing your job.
Every single law we have to know, and hopefully we remember it. That's the tricky thing.
What was your major complaint when you did a 61? What bothered you the most?
Police science basically is the nuts and bolts of what we do every single day, everything from forms and what you do in this procedure and that procedure.
If you were thinking it before, you know the answer now, because you can check it off, right?
Your whole life you're taught to be a defensive driver, and they take you and they try to turn you into almost an aggressive driver.
You're like this. You're twisting your arms.
They treat cones as people, and so every time you hit a cone, they're saying you just hit a person. The first time I went through, I took out every single cone there was, and I was thinking, they are never going to give me my license.
Personally, I had never shot a handgun before, so it was something I didn't know how I was going to be at. I mean, I wasn't scared of the gun, but I just didn't know, if I'd be able to shoot, if I'd be able to do this or do that.
The first time you pull that trigger, you never want to pull it again, because it's loud, it jerks back. Oftentimes, you have hot shells hitting you. I went home the first night, and I was like, I'm never going to be able to hit the target. I'm never going to be able to do anything. This is horrible. And a friend of mine who's on the police force told me, listen to what the instructors are saying. And if you listen and do exactly what they say, you'll be fine. And I think the next day I shot like a 96.
Recruit, you didn't cut that corner. Cut that corner nice and tight. You, recruit, come here. Why do you have your handcuffs in your back?
Typically, academy training is fairly sterile. There's not a lot of influence from the outside.
Well, because it's required.
We have our procedures, we have the information that we need to impart to give them the basic skills of policing.
Put those cops in the front where they belong, where you've been trained. Dismissed.
And when they leave here, then they gain the practical experience of dealing with people in crisis, responding to emergencies. And it takes the information that they've learned and brings it to life. That happened the other way around this time. They were forced into a situation and did a phenomenal job.
After September 11th, the entire academy was mobilized. It was the first time in 30-something years the academy's ever been mobilized for something like this.
All ID and driver's license. Step down.
The class itself had just gone through maybe a month and a half of training, and very rapidly the class went from classroom and book learning to actual police work.
Most of them on the first day or two were assigned to traffic posts in the city.
For the types of things I was doing out there, I did traffic, a lot of traffic, some security checkpoint posts where we were checking IDs down by the actual site, making sure nobody was getting in there that didn't need to be in there.
I remember thinking, I've never done traffic. I'm like, I'm scared to walk in front of these New York drivers. That was my first thought, and I was scared. I think at that point, you're trying not to be freaked out.
The first time I was actually on top of Ground Zero, I was working with an officer who was setting up a communications network, and he drove me right onto the site. And it was just, that particular day was just, that's the day that sticks out the most in my mind.
The recruits stayed out for about 3 weeks, and then slowly but surely the instructors started to come back, and then we brought the recruits back. They had been out in the outside world, but they had seen things probably that most people will never see in their lives.
It's hard to explain what we went through, and I think that's why we are the class of 9/11, because we made a difference. We went out there, and when we came back, we weren't looked at as just rookies. We were looked at as people who actually, held our share. We did our job.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by ING.
I was walking through the hall yesterday, and the door to the observation deck of the gym was open, and I heard the cadence, and I was like, wow, the gym must be packed.
I want you to step in, strike and grab. I want to see it.
And I go down there, and it's a regular recruit class, and everybody's in the same beat, and everybody's in sync. It's refreshing to see that they're minted now. We've taken them from John Q. Citizen and made them John Police Officer.
Did you know what that meant when you said, I always wanted to be a police officer? Did you know, at that point, did you know what that meant to you? What it meant to be a police officer? And what happened? 9/11. Now you know.
There's a different world out there now. Terrorism is, where it was always a threat, is now a reality. And it's something that we have to build in, not just as a special block of training, but as part and parcel of the overall training.
Can one police officer prevent a terrorist attack? Yes or no? Armstead. Yes. How can you do it, Armstead?
By being very alert.
Ramos, how can you what can you keep your eyes open for?
People's actions and movements that they do, like what they're around and little things like, you know, when they have bags in their hands.
And every day, read the newspaper so you know what to keep your eyes open for.
I think what you see if you look at training that the recruits get now, whether it's tactics or firearms or classroom training, is a real appreciation and concern for an awareness of terrorism now post-September 11th.
Guy strapping himself with some dynamite, what's he getting onto? A city bus, all right? It's happening in the Middle East almost every day. Most of the time, you're on a bus. Are you on duty or are you off duty? Off duty. You're probably going to be off duty. Should you not keep your eyes open when you're off duty? If I'm going to blow up a bus, my preference would probably be not to blow myself up with the bus, but that's just me. I don't like blowing myself up.
What is this for? What's this for?
It's a pretty much lax environment right now. We're preparing for graduation. So from this point on, we're getting to know the recruits a little more and preparing them for the streets.
I am about 4 days away from graduation. It feels outstanding to finally, to have come, 27 years and come to this point where I want to be, and I'm only 4 days away from it.
I mean, I'm so proud of every single person who's graduating tomorrow, because they take a complete civilian and they turn you into someone who's a public servant to protect the people. So one day, you're calling the police, you see something bad that's going on, you say, oh, I should call the police, and the next day, you are the police.
Daddy's gonna come in soon.
Forward, march.
When you first walk in, the crowd's there, and you know that that's it. This is the start of a big show.
If any class earned its stripes early on, it was the class of 2002. In the aftermath of September 11th, there has been a lot of introspection about what people do for a living. And the public at large has concluded that a police officer, particularly a New York City police officer, is a good thing to be. Uphold the Constitution of the United States.
Before everyone had come into the auditorium, and they remind you that when you say that oath, make sure you say it with meaning, because you're taking an oath that over 500 officers have taken and have died for.
To the best of my ability, so help me God.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my pleasure to introduce our class valedictorian, Police Officer Michelle Lambert.
Mayor Bloomberg, Commissioner Kelly, distinguished members of the dais.
I'm the valedictorian. I'm proud, but I'm scared. I'm terrified at this moment to give a speech. And I'm so proud to be able to represent the class of 2002.
But what makes this class so unique is not just the events that unfolded during our training, but the dedication and heart that we found within ourselves. We weren't yet police officers, but we were thrown into the role. And we are stronger for what we have been through. And we have the opportunity to be better from what we have learned. We can be the best class that has ever graduated from this academy.
Right at the end, I don't think they issue a command or some sort of thing, but the part where we officially graduated and everyone's gloves go up in the air, and all the applause starts. I think that's the moment I'm waiting for most.
As we go forth with honor, integrity, and respect.
All the award winners went for a press conference. We stood around, and then the press was allowed to ask us questions.
What did you do before becoming an officer?
So you came straight from Massachusetts City Academy?
I'm a cop. My dad's a cop, my grandfather's a cop, my uncle's a cop. I'm overwhelmed. So actually, can I go? Because I just really want to be with my family. I'm sorry. I just really, really want to be with them.
Ah, I'm so proud of you.
That's a good one. This is something I've wanted my whole life, so I knew that I had to put the work in to make sure I got to this day. It's really an honor for me as a Puerto Rican man to be standing here and to have accomplished what I've accomplished, and I'm glad that so many of my fellow officers are also of minority descent. Becky, look at the camera. I'm not sure what my first assignment's going to be. It's going to be a foot post. I know that. I imagine that. But that's part of what makes it really exciting is I'm not sure what I'm going to do that first couple of days and to get my feet wet and things like that. It's going to be cool. I really can't wait for it.
Full for roll call. Officer Ponce, Officer Mejia, you guys have priority post 81. Rios, sir. Oloniki, sir. You guys will have priority post 59.
Everything's gone pretty much as I expected to. I've had a great first few weeks here.
We're all rookies at one time, okay? We're all nervous. Don't be shy. Don't run away from it. Make the arrest. You don't know what you're doing, just ask for help.
All right, see you later. Get to your first day at the new precinct, and you get assigned your locker, and you put on your full uniform for the first time, and it's no longer the gray academy shirts, the yellow patches. It's a real uniform, and you're just like, wow, it finally comes to fruition here.
You're on foot post a lot. You go to details, which means like parades, and you go to demonstrations, writing tickets, things like that, basic things, just trying to get your feet wet.
Come out of the street. I'll take your mic, okay? Thank you.
When tourists come up and they try to take pictures with you, normally if you're walking down the street, a tourist never wants to take a picture with a New Yorker. They're looking for directions, but it's almost like you put on the suit, and here you are, and if something happens, you have to do it.
You come into the police academy, and they're giving you the basics in how to become a New York City police officer. But the real learning process comes when you graduate the police academy and you go out to a precinct, out there patrolling the streets.
Tonight, for example, my partner and I were assigned to 7th Avenue, 51st to 53rd Street, both sides. So basically, it's just a big square that we're going through, and you basically, the object is perpetual motion throughout, and just kind of a presence. You want to make sure everyone knows you're there.
A lot of people come on this job and they think, I'll be chasing criminals every day, I'll be in shootouts and car racing. It's not. You come on the job and I'd say most of it is you're giving directions, you're helping people. It's important, it's just so different than what TV portrays it.
How you doing?
Do you know what street I can pick up a bus for the Port Imperial?
When you become a New York City police officer, many times in your own mind, and sometimes in the mind of the people out there, they're waiting to test you. If when the big call comes, if you're going to do the right thing.
Tonight is a problem lately with recurring peddlers. So that'll be something we'll be focusing on quite a bit tonight. We caught him, I guess, at the tail end of his operation. He was running around selling umbrellas out of a bag. Is it your first time? It's your first time. Oh, it's your bad luck, man. And I talked to the sergeant about it, and he's kind of the smaller fish. We want to just kind of get him away from here for now.
Where's your buddy? Where's your buddy?
If we had taken that into the house at this point, then the 7th Avenue would be without a post for the next 3 or 4 hours, and it really would have defeated the purpose of being out here in the first place. How you doing? You got a pickup coming over here?
The biggest tool you use is your brain and your mouth to talk through things. So that's when you really learn to be a police officer.
We're still rookies, class of 9/11, but the day you get here, you're a rookie. So you're the same as every other rookie, trying to learn, from ground up, baby steps.
I'm looking very forward to at least the next 20 years. I mean, if everything goes the way I want it to go and everything goes as well as I hope it can go, I see no reason why I need to get out of 20.
I've always wanted to help people, and this job, that's what you're doing. You're doing 100% just helping people, and that's what being a cop is. And if you wake up every day, just trying to do your best, I think you have a good 20 years ahead of you.
I'll be back in a moment with some final thoughts about the latest information on the class of 9/11. There's an important postscript to our story, a reminder of the kind of experience that turns rookies into veterans. On the last day that our Nightline team was working on this story, across the city, a WABC crew in the East Flatbush section of Brooklyn filmed this scene. Michael Kryman, a member of the same academy class as Rios and Lambert, was shot in the stomach by a suspect in a car stripping sting. He had graduated from the academy just 1 month earlier. We're happy to be able to report that Officer Kryman was released from Kings County Medical Center just last week. That's our report for tonight. I'm Ted Koppel in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
To receive a daily email about each evening's Nightline and a preview of special broadcasts, log on to the Nightline page at abcnews.com.
This has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.